In the vast solitude of the desert, Eliab heard a clear and serene voice that would change his destiny forever. Eliab had hit rock bottom. As the son of a Hebrew farmer, he lived in a dusty and forgotten village on the borders of the Judean desert. After the death of his wife and the devastating drought that had ruined his crops, he felt that the God of his ancestors had abandoned him. Isolated in his small adobe tent, he spent his days in a state of lethargy, immersed in dark thoughts and unanswered questions. Why him? Why now? Despair had invaded every corner of his being. One night, after several days of barely sleeping, he knelt on the floor of his tent. Tears fell incessantly, and with a broken voice he whispered a desperate prayer, asking Yahweh for a sign, a ray of hope to pull him out of the abyss in which he found himself. It was then that the unexpected happened. In the midst of his anguish, Eliab felt a deep sense of peace envelop his heart. As if the outside world had faded away, a soft yet firm voice resonated in his mind, telling him, "Everything will be all right. Trust the process." Surprised and doubtful, Eliab slowly stood up. He didn't know if that voice was a product of his imagination or a genuine divine intervention. However, the serenity he had felt was undeniable. He decided to cling to that hope, even if it was fragile. In the following days, he began to notice small changes within himself. Whenever he felt downcast, that voice reappeared in his mind, whispering words of encouragement and reminding him that he was not alone. He began to dedicate time to meditation and prayer, seeking the divine connection he had experienced. Each session was an opportunity to silence the noise of his thoughts and listen intently. One day, while meditating under the shade of a palm tree, a clear and brilliant idea emerged in his mind to create a refuge for travelers and pilgrims crossing the desert. At first, the idea seemed absurd. How could he, who could barely climb out of his own hole, help others? But the voice in his mind insisted, "You have the strength and purpose. Go ahead." Driven by that conviction, Eliab began to work on his project. He gathered a group of friends and acquaintances, shared his vision, and little by little, the dream began to take shape. They found a cave near an oasis and, with the help of volunteers, transformed it into a welcoming and lively refuge. On the day of the inauguration, as he looked at the people who had come to offer their support and love, Eliab felt a surge of gratitude. Everything he had lived through, every tear and sleepless night, had led him to that precise moment. The voice in his mind had been his guide, his light in the darkness. The refuge became a place of rest for many lost souls, a place where hope flourished and people found comfort and purpose. Eliab, for his part, discovered that every time he helped someone, he felt that profound inner peace he had experienced the first time. Over time, he began to share his story, narrating how the connection between his mind and the divine had transformed his life. Each story was filled with emotion, and many people found inspiration in his words, realizing that they too could experience that spiritual guidance if they opened their minds and hearts. Eliab's experiences were not a path free of obstacles. There were moments of doubt and fear, but every time uncertainty threatened to consume him, the voice in his mind reappeared, giving him strength and clarity. He learned to discern between his own thoughts and divine impressions, developing an increasingly deeper connection with the presence that guided him. One of the most revealing moments for Eliab was during a meditation session when he felt an intense peace that seemed to envelop his entire being. He then understood that this peace was a manifestation of Yahweh's love and care, a constant reminder that he was never alone. The peace that the God of Israel promised to his people had manifested in his life. The impact of the refuge went beyond what Eliab had imagined. It became a meeting point for people of all ages and backgrounds, a place where spirituality and the human mind intertwined to heal and transform lives. The testimonies of those who had found comfort and direction at the refugee were countless, and each story reinforced Eliab's conviction about the power of divine communication. One day, while talking to a young widow who had lost her family in a tragic accident, Eliab shared the importance of inner stillness and openness to spiritual guidance. He told her how, in the most difficult moments, he had found strength by opening his mind and heart to Yahweh's voice. The young woman, with tears in her eyes, thanked Eliab for his words and promised to try to open herself to that divine connection. The years passed, and Eliab became a beloved and respected figure in his community. His story of transformation, guided by that divine voice, resonated in the hearts of many. He taught people to recognize and respond to Yahweh's voice in their minds, showing that by cultivating a receptive and open space, they could experience a life filled with purpose, direction, and inner peace. Throughout his life, Eliab never stopped listening to that voice in his mind. Every time he found himself at a crossroads or needed to make an important decision, he took a moment of stillness, sought inner peace, and listened intently. That divine guidance had become a constant, a loving presence that accompanied him every step of his journey. The connection between spirituality and the human mind had transformed Eliab's life in a way he never would have imagined. His story, a living testimony of the powerful and transformative communication with the divine, continues to inspire many, reminding us that even in the darkest moments, there is always a light guiding us, a voice whispering deep within our minds, telling us that everything will be all right. And so, in each narration, Eliab invited everyone to open their hearts and minds to that voice, that divine guidance that is always present, waiting to be heard. Because at the end of the day, discovering that connection can change everything, leading us to a life of greater purpose, direction, and inner peace.